It's time for me to give you my honest review of this brand new 2026 Honda Goldwing Tour DCT. I got some good stuff, and unfortunately there's some bad stuff. Hey everybody, welcome back to Cruiseman's Garage. Today I'm out in the garage, sitting right next to this beautiful metallic black I say brand new, it's actually got a little over 1,000 miles on it now. 2026 Honda Goldwing Tour DCT. First, I want to give a shout out to all the guys over at Southern Honda in Chattanooga. Actually, it's East Ridge, Tennessee. Southern Honda Powersports, the largest Honda Goldwing dealership in the country. And I flew out and picked this bike up and rode it back to Texas, 800 and some miles. They actually brought a trailer out here to pick up my 2024 Honda Goldwing. They picked it up, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago. Anyway, it is a beautiful bike, and it's a Honda Goldwing. I think it's my 6th Honda Goldwing that I've owned. And I'm going to give you my honest review of this bike. Southern Honda is not paying me to make this video. They're not a sponsor of the video. Honda certainly isn't paying me to make the video, and they're not a sponsor either. So I'm going to tell you exactly what I love about this bike and what I'm really almost puzzled by. I was going to say I'm not real crazy about, but I'm more than anything, I'm really puzzled. So we're going to talk about some of those things as well. First, let me go through some of the good stuff and tell you that mechanically, this motorcycle is virtually identical. It's really identical to any 2018 to 2025 Honda Goldwing, probably a little closer to a 2021 or later because it does have the larger trunk. You know, the 2018, 2019, 2020, they had a little bit smaller trunk. But from that point forward, virtually this is the same motorcycle. It's the same styling other than colors. I mean, it's the same styling, same engine. They did tweak the DCT. I think it was in 21. It's either 20 or 21. They made a few little tweaks to the DCT to make it just a little bit smoother, but almost unnoticeable, honestly. My 2018 was a great bike. My 2024 was a great bike. And this is a great bike. And for me personally, I still believe the Honda Goldwing, as it sits right here today, is the best touring motorcycle for someone like me. Now, if you're a very spirited rider and you're very performance oriented, you might be better off with something like a BMW K1600 because I think it's got that engine that is really, really spirited and exciting. So for a really high performance rider, maybe you'd be happier with that bike, and it still has some nice touring chops. But for me, I'm not a spirited rider. I'm pretty much a casual, round-the-town rider. I do like to do long-distance touring, like to take back roads. I'll do some interstate riding if it's forced on me. And this bike has all the power, all the comfort, all of the features that I need for me to do what I want to do. And it has something that no other motorcycle, I believe, has. It's got that Honda reliability and dependability, and it's a pretty easy bike to maintain. Now, it's a very sophisticated motorcycle, a lot of moving parts, a lot of plastic that has to come off to get to certain things. But many of you out there that own Honda Goldwings, you have my Honda Goldwing maintenance video series, and you're able to maintain most of the motorcycle, not everything, but most everything that you need to do to maintain this bike, you can do yourself in your garage with simple tools. And if you're interested in that, I'll put a link in the description of the video where you can get more information on that. But my point is This is an inexpensive motorcycle to own. It doesn't cost you as much. If you own a BMW and you take it to the shop to have work done on it, you know what I'm talking about. And to my knowledge, nobody makes a set of maintenance videos for the BMW like I do for the Goldwing. And the reason I say that is because I have BMW guys all the time asking me, why don't you make videos for the BMW? Well, number one, I don't own one. Number two, it's just not my thing. So this is my 6th Goldwing. I've been riding Goldwings for 20 years, maybe 20 plus years. And mechanically, from the 6th generation perspective, mechanically, this bike is identical. Some people have been asking me, how does this bike compare to your 2024? How does it ride compared to the 2024? And there's no difference. The 2024 was ultra smooth. My 2018 was very smooth, very great handling, very stable on the highway or around town. It's a much more nimble motorcycle riding around town than you might expect. It's a very easy daily rider. It's a much more manageable motorcycle. It really kind of defies its size because it really is a very easy bike to ride for me. It's got enough storage space for a small trip. You know, I'm going to be going to West Texas. I'll be out there for 5 days. I can put everything I need in the saddlebags in the trunk on this motorcycle. If I needed a seat bag going by myself, if I needed a seat bag, I could put more stuff in there if I was staying longer or needed to take more stuff with me, but I rarely do. When I go to West Texas, I'm just going to use the trunk and the saddlebags, and I'll have everything I need for 5 days. So from a standpoint of a touring bike, it's economical. It gets decent gas mileage. I know a lot of people complain about the size of the gas tank at 5.5 gallons, but I routinely get over 40 miles to the gallon. So that means I can easily go 200 miles or more, sometimes 250, and I'm ready to get off the bike by 200 miles and walk around. I can fill up with gas, have a drink of water, stretch my legs. So if you're an iron butt guy and you like to ride, 7 or 8 hours straight, yeah, it's not going to do that. But for somebody like me, I don't mind stopping every 150 to 200 miles to get gas, stretch my legs, take a drink of water, clean the windshield, do all that stuff. So mechanically, the bike is, I'm going to say flawless because they haven't changed anything. They haven't touched any of the good stuff mechanically. Rides smooth, it's quiet, plenty of power for me. If you need more power, you like sport mode, maybe you need the BT Moto ECU flash. I know a lot of guys have done that and they really like it. I don't need it because this bike out of the box does everything I needed to do. And 99% of the time, I stay in tour mode. If I'm in the mountains and I'm going through twisties where a lot of switchbacks, I'll go to manual mode. But other than that, I pretty much keep this motorcycle in tour mode. So what did they change in 2026? Now, the only thing they changed in 2026 were the colors. It's essentially identical to the 2025 as far as mechanically and electronically. And that's what they made changes in 2025 is to the electronics package. Now, what they did is they took away the built-in satellite navigation. So this motorcycle no longer comes from the factory with any kind of navigation built in. You pretty much either have to have an external GPS mounted to the motorcycle, like a Garmin or something like that, or you'll have to use Apple CarPlay with Apple Maps or Google Maps or Waze or one of the map software that works with Apple CarPlay. Now, a lot of car manufacturers are going this same direction. They're no longer putting navigation systems, proprietary navigation in their vehicles. They're expecting you to use something like Apple CarPlay, that, or they've made their navigation systems subscription-based, where you have to pay a monthly or an annual fee to get navigation. I'm very opposed to that. But in 2025, Honda did change the electronics package, and there's some good things about it, and there's some bad things about it. And I'm going to tell you when we come back what I like about these new electronics and what I don't like. So let's talk a little bit about the new electronics. First of all, the changes underneath your seat. Your audio package rests underneath the trunk. And on previous models, pre-2025, say 2018 to 2024, you wouldn't see the actual connectors sticking out from the audio unit underneath the trunk. And that's where everything plugged in. It no longer works like that on the 25 and up. Instead, the cables, the connection cables seem to be coming from up underneath the trunk, and they're connected with physical wire type connectors, male, female, and then they're all bundled up under the trunk, under the seat, I should say. And they sit at the back of the seat, right, butting up right next to the trunk. And it appears to me that that's making for less space. I think the reason they might have changed that is because a lot of people might have been breaking some of those connectors that went into the audio unit, and that was causing problems. And the audio unit on a Honda Goldwing is a very expensive thing to replace. If you were to break a connector and it broke off in the unit and you had to replace the audio unit, you're looking at about $2,500. Very expensive, not to mention the labor that it would take, because you got to remove the trunk and do everything to get to it. So maybe that's the reason Honda changed this to these wires that are now bundled up underneath the seat at the back of the trunk, and it seems to make less space for some accessories. There's also a Wi-Fi antenna now, because that's required for wireless Apple CarPlay, which this motorcycle does have wireless Apple CarPlay built in. Now you can get wireless Apple CarPlay with an adapter on the previous model, the 2018 to 2024. I did it for years with the Carlin kit adapter. A lot of you have purchased those through our affiliate links and been very happy with it. I was very happy with it. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about the wireless CarPlay on this bike after I get through some of the things I don't like. I want to end up on a happy, pleasant, positive note when it comes to the electronics package. The downside, the part that puzzles me about the new electronics is the radio. And then when I say radio, I'm talking about AM, FM, and Sirius XM. I would say they work about the same as before. I think we were all hoping that AM, FM reception was going to be better and stronger. I have tested it. It might slightly be better, the AM reception. I have an AM station that I listen to every time I go to breakfast on Sunday to meet the guys for breakfast, or on Saturday now. And I listen to the same station. On my 2024 and 2018, I could barely, it's a local AM station, and I could barely pick it up. It was very, very staticky, just poor reception. And I could also notice when I would leave town listening to a radio station, I'd get on the other side of Fort Worth and I'd lose connection. I couldn't pick up the station. I'm going to be taking the road trip this week. It'll be very interesting to see how far I can get on the other side of Fort Worth before I lose connection to my favorite radio station. We'll see. And I'll report back. I'm going to be doing a motovlog from that trip, so I'll let you know how the AM radio works on that trip. So AM, FM, XM, I would say is about the same and maybe marginally better. The antenna is in the exact same location up here on the right saddlebag, above the right saddlebag lid. So they didn't change the antenna to my understanding. Maybe they have amplified the signal within the audio unit itself. I don't know. I have not been able to get any verification on that at all. But what puzzles me and disappoints me greatly, they completely redid the interface on the radio. They could have done more. I think they could have made it a little more modern and a little more sophisticated than what it is. But they did change the settings and the menu system so the icons are different. Everything looks differently in the audio screen than it did in 2024 in prior. And no, it cannot be updated because it's a whole new package. It's a whole new physical, mechanical, not mechanical, but a whole new electronics amplifier system under the trunk. So you can't simply firmware update to get this new interface on the older Goldwings. But this new interface has a quirk that I have not been able to figure out, and I certainly can't understand why Honda would do this. Now, maybe you guys with a 2025 or 2026, maybe somebody out there has figured out how to do this. I listen to AM, FM radio pretty frequently. I listen to XM radio when they give me a free trial. Otherwise, I'm not going to pay the subscription fee. But I do like to listen to AM, FM radio, especially when I'm riding around town. I also like using Apple CarPlay for maps and other features. I can't figure out how you change radio stations while you're watching or while you're in Apple CarPlay, or even if you're not in Apple CarPlay, even if you're just on the home screen and you want to change, let's say you've got 3 AM stations set as favorites, which they used to be called presets, now they call them favorites. Presets and favorites have a different meaning now than they used to. But let's say you have 3 favorite radio stations locally, and you want to go from one station to the next. On my 2018 or 2024, I simply hit the right arrow button on the control pad, and it would step to the next station. If I hit the left arrow button, it would go back to the previous station, even with Apple CarPlay in front of me on the screen. Now, hitting the left or right arrow on the keypad does nothing. Doesn't affect Apple CarPlay. Now, if you hit the up or down arrow, it affects your cursor in Apple CarPlay. But left and right arrows do nothing. Now, what that means is to change a radio station on this new motorcycle. If I'm in Apple CarPlay, let's say I'm looking at a map, and I want to change my radio station, I have to hit the source button on the left-hand grip. And that brings up and lets me change my source from AM, FM, XM. Once I do that, it will bring up the screen where I then have to take my eyes off the road and scroll over using the keypad until I get to my favorites and then scroll down to the station I want. This takes several steps to do this. It not only, in my opinion, is clunky and unsophisticated, but could be dangerous. If you're going 70 miles an hour in traffic and all you want to do is change your radio station, you can't simply hit the right arrow and go to the next station. That is probably the biggest negative that I've found on this motorcycle. So you tell me, if you've figured out a way to easily go from one radio station to the next without going through the source button and going into the menu system to do it, I'd love to know, and I'd love to let everybody else know because I haven't been able to figure out how to do it. There are some new settings in the menu as far as the setup. These might be things that not many of you have even looked at or used or care about, but I find it interesting that Honda would build this radio system. Now, some people would say, well, you just use iHeartRadio on Apple CarPlay, and it has its own interface where you can then change radio stations, and that's fine, but you're then dependent on a cell phone connection. So using up data on your phone to do that, which is fine, but if that's the case, then why even put AM, FM, and XM on the bike to begin with? Why not just get rid of it? If you're not going to build an interface that makes sense, so Honda, I implore you, come out with a firmware update. I'm not sure if this bike can be updated through the USB like the previous generation. Hopefully it could be. If it can, where you can basically download the update, put it on a USB thumb drive, and then inside the glove box, plug it in and upload the firmware. Bike also has Wi-Fi. That's not impossible to think that you could actually do it over the air. But I've seen nothing about this, but it'd be nice if they would update that firmware so that you could at least use the right and left arrow keys on the keypad to change radio stations. I mean, anyway, you tell me if I'm being unreasonable. To me, on a $30,000 motorcycle, that just seems like something that would be obvious. Now, I told you there was a good side to this new radio system, this new audio package. The good thing is they have completely hit it out of the park as far as Bluetooth communications with my Sena headsets. I have not tested it with Cardo, but with my Sena Spectre helmet, which I've been using since I got this bike, it connects every time, first time. It doesn't matter if I turn the bike on first, it doesn't matter if I turn on the helmet first. I've only had one time when it did not connect properly, and that was this morning, oddly enough. But every single time I turn the helmet on, I usually turn my helmet on first, and then I start the bike. And the bike, Apple CarPlay comes up within 10 seconds. Apple CarPlay just shows up. It is very seamless. It works the way it should have always worked. And it's very impressive. Honda did a good job with the connectivity, with the Apple CarPlay integration. That works very well. Kudos to Honda. They did a good job with that. Now, just give me a way to change my radio stations and I'll be happy. Okay. That's the good and the bad of the electronics. When we come back, I'm going to tell you about the most negative thing about this 2026 Honda Goldwing. It's the one thing I am really disappointed in. Hey everybody, welcome back to my review of the 2026 Honda Goldwing. And as I have already told you many times, I love this motorcycle. It's the most comfortable, has all the power I need, has all the features I need for touring. I've now got it dressed out pretty much the way I want it with my Muth mirrors, my daytime running lights, my cowl lights from Pathfinder LED. I've got the Honda air deflectors, which I recently put on. I'll be throwing up a video on that here shortly. I have not put it on yet, but I will be before I leave town. I'll be putting the Breezy Rider pad on this seat. Makes it a little bit more comfortable for riding in the summer. So all that's great. Mechanically, the ride, where I'm really disappointed in this motorcycle, and it pains me to say it, but that's in the fit and the finish. The paint. Oh, first of all, let me talk about how Honda has done the stripes and this graphic treatment. It's a little hard to see on the black motorcycle. The red, it's a little easier to see, but it does have some, they call this metallic black, but it actually looks almost like a charcoal gray to me, because this stripe here around the front and even back here on the saddlebags, you can visibly see that's black. It's certainly darker than this paint. Now that could just be because of the metallic in the paint. Maybe it's making it look like that. But to me, it looks a lot more like a very, very dark charcoal gray. Now, one of the things about the finish on these motorcycles, while I do like the graphics and the way they look back here on the saddlebag with the gold, I like the gold pinstriping they did. And the little sticker, this is all a sticker, by the way. This entire piece right here is one big decal. There's paint above it, and there's maybe a little bit of paint below it, but the majority of what you see on this saddlebag, the majority of what you see on this trunk side panel, and what you see up here on this middle cowl is a big sticker. And while it looks nice, and I like the gold pinstriping around the edge, I think they could have done a little bit more with that gold like they did on the 2024 Goldwing. I wish they had brought that gold pinstriping, maybe a gold and a gray up here on the top shelter, like they did the red and the black on my white Goldwing. I think that would have added just a little extra touch. The stickers themselves, I call them stickers or decals or whatever they are, they do show a lot of orange peel. So what Honda has done is they paint the motorcycle, they then apply this sticker, and then they shoot a clear coat over the paint and the sticker. And the clear coat does not sit on that sticker very well. It doesn't flow smoothly. You get a lot of orange peel. And some of you, if you understand paint, you know what I'm talking about with orange peel. But it's not just on the sticker. On the trunk lid, the back of the trunk, the orange peel, it almost looks dull. Now, when you get it out in the sunlight, the metallic it pops and you don't notice it. It kind of tricks your eyes. So you don't really notice the orange peel like you do if it's in my garage or if it's indoors. You can really see that orange peel. I'm showing you some examples right now, which you can see. I mean, it really bothers me. My friend Dale helped me out. I got my spoiler from Pathfinder LED. And he took that spoiler to a local painter and they matched this paint. They found the paint code, they matched it, matched the metallic. The paint quality on that plastic spoiler is so far superior. I put it on the trunk and now the trunk looks bad because the trunk has so much orange peel. The spoiler looks great, but the rest of the trunk lid, really, I mean, it's just, to me, there's no excuse for this on a $30,000 motorcycle. Honda can do better. Now, there are parts of the motorcycle where the paint did flow nicely. The front fender looks nice, the rear view mirrors look nice, the saddlebag lids look good. It's mostly the trunk lid and even the front windshield garnish. The paint did not flow. And I understand it's difficult painting on plastic because normally you want to put this painted piece in a hot area you can only get plastic so hot or otherwise it'll melt. But to get the paint to flow smoothly over that plastic, it has to be warm. Well, they accomplished it in some areas. Even the gas cap lid and the center pocket lid, all of that looks really nice, but that trunk and that front cowl, and even as I sit here, I can see on the middle cowl, I can see quite a bit of orange peel. So that's my disappointment. The only thing, and you know, to be fair to Honda, most people could not care less. I don't think they're going to look at this bike out in the sun and they're going to say, man, that's a beautiful paint job. Most people are not as picky as I am about paint and fit and finish. I am really anal when it comes to that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's the good and bad. That's my review of this 2026 Honda Goldwing. If you have any specific questions, please put them in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, got anything out of it, do me a favor, please give it a thumbs up. That really does help my YouTube rankings. I'm still trying to get to 100,000 subscribers, believe it or not. And we're getting there. It's growing pretty fast. So thanks for all your support. Share the video with your friends. Thanks for joining me. And until I see you on the next Cruiseman's Garage, remember what I always say, ride often, but ride safe.